Okay, retroviruses and what makes them so distinct, like HIV, is that they violate something called the central dogma of molecular biology. And it's a complicated process as it occurs on a molecular level, but it's a simple principle that biological genetic information only moves one direction. It goes from replication, transcription, to translation, from DNA to RNA to a protein. Okay, with AIDS, I'll use AIDS as an example. It's um, pretty much uh, characteristic of any of a retrovirus, and the action that is important is characteristic of any. Um, the HIV virus goes after these really big uh, forms of it. You call them leukocyte is the cell in general, white blood cell. They go after the lymphocytes, the CD4 T cells. They're huge as far as cells go. So with an HIV virus, which is a very small thing, viruses are small. Um, they're themselves not life. They're RNA, not they don't have any DNA. You have to be DNA to be classified as life. Um, so it really looks like kind of like the Death Star coming up on the sun. I can't even see it. Yeah, there you go. It's uh, kind of looks like I don't know. It's in a purple marker. It's a lot more heinous looking, the actual HIV virus, but it approaches the permeable membrane, selectively permeable membrane of a lymphocyte, and it the reason it picks the CD4s or the mechanism by which it operates is specifically CD4. It may not be why it picks the CD4. Is actually the CD4 receptor. It's a protein receptor that allows for permeability into the cell on the outside of it. And the AIDS virus or HIV virus, not AIDS virus, kind of hovers outside of it, asking permission to dock, if you will. And it has there's a process that you couldn't observe, but they kind of graphically represent as this communication of proteins between the virus and the membrane of the cell. Eventually, what happens, at least the mechanics of what happens, the cell membrane allows for the collapse of the protein from the DNA into the cell body itself. Once it gets into the cell body, there are three major proteins that the HIV uses to infect the cell that do the damage. The one that gives the DNA its name, that makes it, or sorry, gives the HIV its name, that makes it a retrovirus. It operates right backwards. It violates the central dogma by this particular protein called reverse transcriptase. There's three of these proteins, like I said. There's protease. You've probably heard of protease. Protease inhibitors is one of the antiretrovirals that they use. There's integrase and reverse transcriptase. And that's a rule to remember: is anything that's ACE is probably going to be an enzyme, meaning it's going to act on a protein in one of the metabolic processes. So what these three proteins do that make for HIV's action in the body is the um, RNA will take a strand, or the reverse transcriptase will take a strand of its RNA and transcribe it. The protease, 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 protease will go into the chromatin structure inside of the mitochondria, and it takes out a length of, of DNA of the genetic code. The integrase then takes the length of RNA that the reverse transcriptase has manufactured and inserts it into the genetic code, whereas the protease took the length of DNA out. So now that it's in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, into the genetic code where the cell is getting its instructions on how to replicate, it's now transferred to the replicative um, bodies when a cell undergoes mitosis. Um, it transfers itself in messenger mRNA, and um, the cell is in fact corrupted from the time that it's created mitosis to the time that it's generated. So what DNA does, what HIV does, that makes it so distinct, is essentially operates in reverse of life. The good news is that we have now several very good antiretrovirals, AZT and protease inhibitors, and people can live indefinitely. As much as anybody who doesn't have HIV can expect to live a long and productive life, people with HIV can now. It's vital that people are tested. A lot of the attitude that you're better off not knowing could be eliminated if people were educated as to the extent to which we can keep people's lives comfortable. There doesn't have to be that first pneumonia bout, discovering that you're sick and it's almost too late. People can live for a long time, and that, on a related note, is why it's a crime that we are not providing these drugs to Africans. It's genocide. It's the eugenics of the status quo, that these people are in their position because they're bad, or they wanted, if they wanted to stay well, they could wear condoms, and that's what I'll address next, because someone actually made a comment about condoms being affordable, so why weren't they wearing them? I hope that's been educational. I wish I could have drawn more pictures, but you couldn't